Hi everyone, my name is Giovanna Proença and today we're going to talk about Project 4 Network of CS50 Web Programming with Python and JavaScript. So basically in this problem, we're going to build a Twitter-like social network website for making posts and following users. So by the end, we're going to have a project like Twitter where we can post, we can edit our posts, we can like the posts of others, and we can follow people, we can be followed, and so on. All right? We're going to see the specification once at a time when we're working, but initially I want to show you how it's our page looking right now. This is what we have so far. We have here the navbar that they created. They already created here the login route and the register, so we don't need to worry about this, okay? Here, if we're not logged in, we're able to see all the posts, and if we are logged in, we have more functionalities to do, and we're gonna add in the future, okay? So let's start with the first part. Here we're gonna use Python, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, so everything we worked so far during the CS50 web course, we're gonna use in here, so this project is really nice. Let's start working with the new post. So users who are signed in should be able to write a new text-based post by filling in text into a text area and then clicking the button to submit the post. So basically, in our index post here in the all posts, we have to create this logic here of creating a new post, all right, adding this text area. But we will only be able to add a new post if we are logged in, okay? So we have to think about this logic. Before we start, we have to build here the class for our post. So we have to manipulate our database to create the fields of our post. So here I'm going to create a class post, and I'm going to add in here the word models.model, okay? And let's start thinking about the fields we need. Basically, we need the content of the post, and this will be a char field, so models.char field. Great. And the max length, I'm gonna follow Twitter. So max length, I'm gonna put 140 characters. Then we need to know who is the author. And to know the author, we're gonna get the foreign key for the user. So basically here, we're gonna get the data from the user. Okay, so models.foreign key. And here we're gonna say we wanna be the foreign key from users on delete equals to models.cascade, because once we delete the user, models.cascade, once we delete the user, we want to be able to delete all the posts of that particular user. And related name, I'm gonna say here author, okay? Actually user. Here I'm gonna say user, and the other one I'm gonna say author. And we also need to know what is the timestamp. Okay, so here I'm gonna say date equal to models.date time field. And in here I'm gonna add this auto now add, because it will create for us the timestamp automatically. All right. Once we have here these three fields, I'm gonna create this def str, because if you remember, this is really good for us if we're trying to see the data in our database, and we're gonna see this in a bit. And here I'm gonna say return f string. Here I'm gonna say post self.id, made by self.user, and the timestamp on self.date. And here, if we want to see the date, we have to transform this into a string. Okay, so here I'm going to say quotation mark %d for day, %b for month, okay? And then we're gonna use %y for year, %h for hour, year, hour, now minute, and then for second, okay? And this is pretty much what we need in here, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, I'm missing here the parentheses, and I'm missing here the single quotation mark. Okay, so this is pretty much what we need in this part, okay? Once we finish writing our models, I'm gonna stop the server here, so I'm gonna do Ctrl+C. And we need to do migration. So here, Python 3, make migrations network. Here we're gonna do Python 3, manage.py, make migrations network. Great, so here we're creating our database. Then we're gonna do Python 3, manage.py migrations. Actually migrate. So now we are successfully creating here. And before I run the server again, let's add here in our admin. Let's create this new class for us. So from.models import post. And I'm gonna register this post in our admin. So admin register.site. And here I want to register post. Okay, let's create our super user. So here I'm gonna do Python 3 manage.py create super user, and I'm gonna create a super user here. Probably it's not site. Let me double check in here. So it's admin.site.register. Great, now it's correct. So let's run the super user again. So create super user. I'm gonna put here my name G, The email address I'm gonna let empty, and I'm gonna create a password. Great. So here I'm creating my super user, and now I'm gonna run my project. So Python 3 manage.py run server, and let's see our database so far. Okay, so in here I added the route /admin, and I'm gonna try to enter with my new user. And if I enter in here, we can see posts. Okay, so we're able to see our class. And right now it's empty, but if I click add post, we have here content. So for example, if I put hi everyone, actually we don't have a user, right? So let's add here in our admin.site.register. Oops, register, and I'm gonna put user. Let me import user from here as well. Remember that user is a class that we have available for us. So let me refresh in here. Now we have user. Let's create a user. So here we have G, great. And here in posts, I'm gonna create a user, hi everyone, that G made this post. So if I click save, we're gonna have here this post one made by G on 24 November 2022, and the time that I am right now. Okay, so this is pretty much, right now it's working the part of working with the database. But now we need to make this work in our page. Okay, so here I'm gonna log it in as G, and here we have the functionalities G, all posts and following. Now we're gonna work with the all posts. So the models.py is done. Now we're gonna work with our index. The index is already kind of made. We're gonna do some manipulations in the future. But in here we have here this request network index.html. So basically in the index function, we are rendering the index.html. And in our index.html, we have this to-do message. So right now, what we have to think, we have to create now this structure here, this text area, all right? But this text area will only be available if we are logged in. So to do this, we're gonna create an if statement in here. Okay, actually I'm gonna start creating here an H1 because I want to say this all posts. And now we're gonna create the text area. So to work with an if statement, we're gonna use this curly bracket %if user.is authenticated. Okay, so if the user is authenticated, and then here I'm gonna end our if, so end if. Great. Now everything we're gonna write it down in here will only appear if we are logged in. So for example, if I do in here hi, we'll only be able to see if we are logged in. So for example, if I refresh in here, now it's displaying hi, but if we log out, the hi is not displaying anymore because we're not logged in. So this is really good because we can work with if statements inside of our HTML. Now let's create this structure here. Okay, we're gonna create this message, new post, this text area, and the button post. So here instead of paragraph, I'm gonna do an H2, and here I'm gonna say new post. And now we're gonna create a form. Okay, so here I'm gonna create a form action, and the action I'm gonna leave it empty right now, but in the future we're gonna add, and the method will be post. Okay, let me close the form tag. Then every time we're working with forms and Django, we have to use the CSRF token to allow our form to be submitted. So here CSRF token. Okay, that's the structure. Now let's create our input. So I'm gonna use the text area tag. Okay, text area. And here I'm gonna give a name because the name will be the identifier when we're working with the backend. And here I'm gonna say content. I'm gonna give a row equals to 4 and columns equals to 50 here to create the height and the width of our text area. And then I'm gonna add a submit button. So input type equals to submit, and the value will be equals to post. I will also give a class here from Bootstrap where I'm gonna add here the btn-primary. Okay, and that's pretty much what we need. Now if we refresh our page, we will be able to see here now this new post, the text area, and the button post. Okay, I'm gonna put the button in the next line, so I'm gonna do a BR here tag, and we're gonna see that now the button's in the next line. Great. And I'm gonna work with some divs here to put this in the middle, because if you see, actually in this case I want to give a little bit of margin. So let me see, let's work with the CSS. So here I'm gonna give a class equals to my3. This is a class from Bootstrap, and mx5. And let's see what happens. I'm giving some margin in the x and y directions. All right, actually I'm not gonna put here. I'm gonna add in a div where we contain the h2. So here I'm gonna give some indentation. Let me give here a div class. Great. And here I'm gonna close this div. So now if we take a look in here, we're able to see that now we have this part in here. Great. The page is not looking so nice. We're going to work more with CSS in the future, but you can change here the column to 100, for example, if you want. Let's see what happens. and then we have a bigger width, okay? In here, actually, I'm gonna use div-flex justify content center to put all this div in the center, and okay, and I'm gonna put them in a row. So here I'm gonna give a div class equals to row, and I'm gonna close in here the div. Let's see if we're able to fix this. So we're fixing the new post. Actually, I have a better idea. Instead of using div-flex, let's create a class here called post, new post, and we're gonna work with CSS. So here, let's open up our CSS file, and I'm gonna create here a class new post. And in this class, I'm gonna use display flex direction column, and justify content center, and align items center as well. So let's see what happens. If I refresh in here, now we have this nice thing. Let me fix in here one thing. So instead of having this, I'm gonna remove the margin, and I'm gonna give a width of 100%. So let's see what happens. Okay, nothing changes much. Let me add a border so we can visualize what is our new post. So here, border, 1 pixel, solid gray, oops, semicolon, and let's see. If I refresh, nothing is changing. And that's okay, we will fix more of this in the future, there's no worry, okay? Because this is not the point. Now that we have this form in here, we need to be able to send this data to our backend, okay? So what are we gonna do? We're gonna create a new function in our views.py, and we're gonna call this new function as new post, for example. So def new post request, and here I'm gonna do a if method. So if request dot method is equals post, we're gonna get the data that we have in our form. So we have to get this text area. We're giving here the name content, so we're gonna get here content equals to request dot post content, okay? Once we have our content, we also need to get our user, so we're gonna get the user getting by the current user that is logged in. So here user, oops, is equals to user dot objects dot get, and here the primary key we're gonna use by getting the request dot user dot id. So this way we're able to get who is the author of the post, and now we're gonna create a new post. So here we have to import our post class, and here we're gonna build our post. So I'm gonna say post, and here we're gonna say content equals to content, and user equals to user. The timestamp we don't need to add because it's automatically saved for us. Once we create the object, we need to save this object, okay? And we're gonna render again our index page. So here return HTTP response redirect reverse index. Okay, that's pretty much what we need. Let's create this new route in our urls.py. So here I'm gonna say path new post views.new post and name equals to new post. Now that we have this, we can add in our action the word new post. So here curly bracket %URL new post. Okay, and I think this is pretty much what we need. So let's try it out. If I refresh in here, great. So now it's in the middle like we were expecting. Great. Here I'm gonna try to add a new post. So if I say here testing and I click post, okay, nothing is being displayed here because we didn't create the logic of displaying the posts in our page. But if we take a look in here in our posts, we made a second post in here called testing. So this means that it's working. So right now I finished the first bullet point. Now let's see the next one. So now we're gonna work with the all posts. So basically here, every time we click all posts, we have to be able to see all the posts from all users, all right? So here we have all the posts and we have to see all posts in here. This is important. With the most recent posts first, like Twitter, we wanna see the most recent and then the older ones. All right, here we have to, each post should include the username of the poster, the post content itself, and the date and time of the post. In the future, we're gonna have the likes, but right now we're gonna leave this empty. Okay, so let's just start. Basically, we have to get all posts we have available in our database. So to do this, I'm gonna create a variable called all posts, and we're gonna get the data from our database. So here, posts.objects.all. And here, how can we get in the reverse order from the recent to the latest? We're gonna use this order by ID because the ID, the higher the ID, the most recent it is. So here we're gonna do reverse. All right. Then we have to send this all posts to our index. So here all posts all posts, great. And now we're able to manipulate in our index.html. So here in our index.html, we're gonna create a for loop. Okay, so after our end if, I'm gonna create here a div class equals to all posts, and later we're gonna create the CSS for this, all posts. And we're gonna do a for loop in here. So actually, we're gonna do for post in all posts, and then we're gonna have to close our for, so end for. And here, just to show you how it happens, here I'm gonna do an h3 saying the title of the post. So if I do here, sorry, the content post.content, we should be able to see the post content in here. So let's refresh and see. So now we have testing, that was our second post, and hi everyone, that was our first post. So far we're able to see here the structure. Okay, so it's working the part of being reversed. Now let's work with creating the styling for this. Okay, so we're doing here a for loop. Instead of this, I'm gonna give a div class equals to row, and I'm gonna call here post. Okay, then we're going to add here an h5 where I'm gonna give a class equals to username, and I'm gonna put the post the name of the user. So here post.user.username, I believe. Let me just double check. Post.user. And I'm gonna use here an @ in the beginning just to remind Twitter. Here I'm gonna close the div. I'm gonna have in here a h6 with the content. So here h6 class equals to content, and I'm gonna say here post.content. And in here, I want to say the date. So here I'm going to create a paragraph class equals to date. And here I'm going to do a post.date. And here I'm going to close the div. That's pretty much what we need. Okay. And let's see how it looks like right now. So if I refresh in here, we're able to see @g testing. Let's give some margin in here, otherwise we're not able to see. So mx5. And let's refresh. I think I just gave for... Yes, it should be given for everything, but we are able to see here @g testing November 338, November 33028. Okay, so we're kind of creating the structure. Now let's work with the styling. Okay, so in here for all posts, I'm just reviewing my previous code. So here for all posts, we're gonna give here a display flex, justify content flex start, and flex direction column. Okay, so let's see here, it won't change much, but we have this in here. And I'm gonna give a margin of 20 pixels. Okay, and I will remove the margin from here. So let's see. If I refresh, now we're able to see it in here. Okay, now we're gonna work with the post. So for the CSS for the post, I'm gonna give here a post, and I'm gonna give a border of 0.1 pixel solid, and it will be gray. Okay, so what is this post? If we refresh, is the post itself in here, but it's not getting the whole content. So let's put a justify content. So display flex, justify content center, flex direction column, and here, let's see how it looks like right now. It's not getting everything. H5, oh, I know what is the problem. I put div in here, but it should be H5, H6, and paragraph. That's why we're having a issue. Let's see now. Okay, so now we have these divs, that's great. And I want to give a max width, because if we shrink the page, I want to be able to fix this, of 600 pixels. And I'm gonna do a box sizing of border box. So let's see how it looks like right now. Now we have this, okay? The all posts, I'm gonna put in here in the center. Let's see what happens. So here, center. If I refresh, no, it's not in the center. Let's remove this, border box. I'm gonna remove this max width. I like the way that it looks like in here. I think it's responsive. Okay, and I'm gonna give a margin for this post. So here of 20 pixels as well. So if I refresh, now we have a margin between them. Actually, I'm gonna put here 5 pixels and 20 pixels. So 5 pixels for the vertical and 20 pixels for the horizontal alignment. And that's pretty much what we have so far. Okay, it seems to be working. Now let's work with the next session. I was checking here that we created the username, date, and content class. So let's add this in here because I forgot to add the styling. For content, I'm gonna give a font size of 15 pixels. Okay. For username, I'm gonna give a font size of 22 pixels. And for date, I'm gonna change the color to gray. And I'm gonna change the font size to 15 pixels as well. So let's see how it looks like. If I refresh in here, now it looks a little bit better. The name, the content, and the message. Okay, probably 22 is too much. I'm gonna change to 20. Okay, so this is pretty much what we have. All right. Now, before we move on for the next session, like I mentioned, for the profile page, I already want to fix here the pagination because we're gonna use pagination for the all posts, the following, and the user, the profile page. So it's important that we already implement right now, and then we just reuse this logic. Okay. So how does it work? Basically, if on any page that displays posts should only be displayed 10 on a page. If there are more than 10 posts, a next button should appear to take the user to the next page of posts. If not on the first page, a previous button should appear to take the user to the previous page as well. Here we have to work with the Django paginator and Bootstrap once at a time, and if we combine them, we're able to create the pagination that they are mentioning here. So let's start with Django. If you click in this hyperlink, you will be redirected to this documentation of Django. And here they have a specific paginator class that we can use here, the structure, and we will be able to create the same structure in our website. Okay, basically they have here this paginator class, and they're expecting to receive a list. For example, here we have a list of John, Paul, George, and Ringo, and the number 2. This number 2 means how many objects we want to display at a time. Then we have here, if we scroll down a little bit, if we use this p.page, and remember that p is the name of the paginator, p.page for page 1, it will display only Paul, John, and Paul, that are the first 2 elements. And on p.page 2, they are printing George and Ringo. Okay, and then we're gonna work with this has next, has previous, has other pages, next page number to create this structure on Bootstrap. But let's do one at a time. Okay, so first in our index, instead of, in our views.py in the index function, we're not gonna send all posts anymore. We're gonna create our pagination. So here I'm gonna say pagination. And in here, we're gonna create a variable called paginator, and we're gonna reuse this paginator. Oops. Actually, I think we have to import this from paginator, import pagination. We're gonna import this in here in the top, and we're gonna use this paginator. The paginator is expecting to receive a list, so we're gonna send our all posts, and we're gonna split by 10 posts at a time. So here I'm gonna use the number 10. Now we need to know, now that we have this, we need to know how many pages we're gonna have for our index, for example. So we're gonna create here a page number variable, okay? And we're gonna use this request.get page. Okay, then we're gonna create here a posts of the particular page, okay, and we're gonna use the paginator.get page. Here I'm gonna call get page number, and here we're gonna say get page, and we want to get the page number. So basically, if we are trying to see the first page, we're gonna display only the post for the first page. If we're working with the page 2, we're gonna get the post only for this page 2. That's what we're creating in here. And once we have this, we're gonna send the post of the page as a variable. Okay, so here instead of, I'm gonna send all posts, but you can remove if you want. I'm gonna send posts of the page, and here I'm gonna call posts of the page. Okay, we also gonna send, let me just double check, we're gonna send only this. Okay, now that we created here the class for the Django, we're gonna display things and using this navbar to create the previous 1, 2, 3, and next. Okay, actually we're just gonna create with previous and next basically. So how can we do this? Now we're going to index.html, and first, instead of having all posts here, we're gonna say posts of the page, because now we don't want to display all the posts anymore. We want to display only the posts for that particular case because of paginator. Okay, now in the end, we're going to create this structure here, this navbar with the UL and LI. Okay, so you can copy this, and we're going to do some changes together. So if I paste in here, let's see how it looks like so far. If I refresh, we don't have the posts anymore. Let's see, posts of the page. Let me see if I gave the same name. Posts, I forgot the letter S in here. So if I refresh, now it will display the post, and we have here the paginator. Okay, now we have to create this logic in here that once we click, something happens, because right now nothing is happening. So we're gonna work now with this navbar. So what are we gonna do? Here I'm gonna give a deflex justify content center to put in the center, because right now it's in the left, now it's in the center. Great. Now let's create this logic. So basically we're gonna work with these words in here, has previous, where it is, has previous and has next, okay, to know if we have a next page or not, or if we have a previous page. So in here I'm gonna remove these numbers, and I just want to display previous or next. So in here, I'm going to create an if statement. Okay, so if posts of the page dot has previous, we're going to display this previous in here. Okay, and here I'm going to end the if. Great. And we're going to do kind of the same for the next one. Okay, we're going to check if has next. So here, if posts of the page has next, we're going to display this other li. Okay, so far so good. Now we need to change the href in here of what we're going to do. So now we're going to work with this, where is this? Previous page number, all right? Or we have the next page number as well. So here in our href, we're going to use a $sign, a question mark, page, and we're going to create here a variable because we want to get the next page number. So here we're going to do posts of the page dot previous page number, okay? And we're going to do the same for our other href. So instead of hash, and here we're going to put next page number. Okay, let's see if it's working. We don't have any other pages, okay? But I would change in here, instead of pagination 10, I would change to 1, just to check if it's working. So now if we refresh, we should see only one post. Here we're only seeing the most recent post. We have the next button. If we click next, now we're seeing, actually we're not seeing anything. Let's see what is the issue we're getting. Okay, here I'm missing the number equals. I'm missing the equals character. So let's try all over again. Okay, so 1 to 7. So we're seeing this. Right now we have only one post, the most recent. If we click next, we're seeing the second post, the hi everyone, and now we're displaying the message previous. So our pagination is working. Okay, I'm gonna change in here to 10 again, otherwise we will forget, and this pagination will be removed, but in the future we will be able to see, as we add more posts, we will be able to see in here. Okay, so now that we fixed this part of pagination, we fixed this already. Now let's work with the profile page. So now we're gonna work with the profile page. The profile page will display all the posts for that particular user, all right? And we also have to create another logic that will be displaying the number of followers that the user has, as well as the number of people that the user follows. We're gonna display all the posts in reverse chronological order. And if we are checking the profile of someone else, we have to display a button of follow or unfollow, depending on if we're already following or not, okay? So it will be a little bit complicated, but we're gonna reuse part of the code we did for the index, because for displaying the post it will be the same idea for using the pagination as well. All right, so let's start with this part and then we work with the next ones. So here I'm gonna create a function called def profile, all right, and we're gonna get the request and we're gonna get the user ID. And how are we gonna get this user ID? Every time we type in profile /1, we want to display the profile of the user that has ID 1. Profile /2, it will be the user with ID 2, and so on. Okay, so let's build this in our urls.py. I'm gonna create here a new path for this function, okay, and we're gonna add this user ID in there. So here I'm gonna change every time I have new post, I'm gonna call profile, and in the URL here I'm gonna do a /int user ID. Okay, so we're only able to access the profile route if we have in here this user ID. Okay, now let's do the following. So we're gonna get all the posts for that particular user. Actually, I'm gonna copy everything we have in here. Okay, and I'm gonna reuse and then we will overwrite. So here I'm gonna do Ctrl V. I'm gonna change in here in profile all posts. It won't be all posts anymore. Okay, I'm gonna change here at one thing. So here we're gonna do the same idea of the all posts, but I wanna get the post only for the particular user that we're working with. So first I'm gonna get the user we're working. So I'm gonna do user.objects.get. We need to know who is the user we're working with, and here we're gonna get by the user ID. Then instead of using all, we're gonna use the filter method because we wanna get all the posts of that particular user. So here user equals to user. Okay, and our all post will be this one. And then we can render the same things, but in here I'm gonna change to profile. Okay, I'm going to duplicate here this index and I'm gonna rename it as profile. And for the profile, I will remove this first if statement because we don't need this anymore, and the other parts will be the same. Okay, and here I want to say who is the user. So to tell what is the user, we're going to create a variable to say what is his name. Okay, so here I'm going to do the following. In our views, I'm gonna send here username will be equals to user.username. Okay, and let's see if this works. If I save in here, profile here, I want to display the username. Let's see if this is working. So if I refresh in here, we won't see much. Okay, but if I do in here /profile/1, we should see the page of G, and we're seeing all the posts of G, and here we're saying G as well. Okay, so it's working. Now let's just fix this idea of clicking in G and displaying this page. So we're going to layout, and in here, in our layout, we're gonna add here in the href, I'm gonna say URL index for the network page, the network part. Okay, just for styling. And for the profile, where it is, we're going to have in here this username. We're gonna have the URL profile, but we also need to pass what is the user ID. So we're gonna say here, user ID equals to user.id. Okay, so now let's see if it's working. If I refresh and I click on G, we're not being redirected to the correct part. So let me see, user_ID equals to user ID. Oh, because I'm missing here the percentage. I believe this is the problem. Let's see. If I try to do this again, if I refresh and I click in G, now we're checking the profile of G. Okay, that's great. Now we need to work with the idea of having the logic of the following and followers. Okay, so to do this, we're gonna create first the structure in here. So in our code, I'm gonna close the layout. In our profile, before the post that we're displaying, I'm going to create here a div with class equals to container. And inside of this div, we're gonna display how many followers and how many we are following. So here div class equals to row, deflex justify content center. Great. And inside of this other div, I'm gonna have here an h3 that I'm gonna give a class column 4, and I'm gonna display followers, and here I'm gonna leave empty so in the future we can add what will be this, and I'm gonna do the same for the following. Great, so if we refresh in here, we will be able, okay, it's because it's missing something. So here I'm gonna remove, but later on we're gonna add here what will be this property. So here we have followers and following, and we're gonna add a number in here. So how can we get this number? So basically now we need to create a new class where we're gonna keep track of the followers and following, okay? Our idea is to keep track of the relationship between. The idea will be, I'm gonna say G is following Leo, all right? This will be our relationship. So here in our models, we're gonna create a new class equals to follow, and I'm gonna say here models.model. Great. So the first one, I'm gonna say user, all right? The user that wants to follow. And here it will be a foreign key, models.foreign key from user. On delete, we're gonna have the models.cascade, okay? And our related name will be equals to user who is following. And we have a next one that will be the user followed. And it's going to be a models.foreign key. User again on delete models.cascade. And the related name will be equals to user who is being followed. Okay, so basically here we're creating this relationship. So G is following Leo, all right? And this way we can keep track of the follows. Here I'm gonna create the structure of the str as well. Str self, and I'm gonna write it down this message. So f self.user is following self.user follower. Okay, and that's pretty much what we need. Now that we created this new relationship, we have to register in here in our admin site. So here follow, and here I'm going to change to follow, and we need to make migrations and migrate. So I'm going to stop the server, and I'm going to do all the tests again. So here python manage.py make migrations, now migrate. And now we're able to check what is going on. So let me run our server again. And we will see in our admin part. So here, if we take a look, if I refresh, now we have the follows, okay? I'm gonna create a new user just to make our life simple. So here I'm gonna create a user, actually I'm gonna create a user in here. So let me log out, register, and I'm gonna say leo@email.com. Let me give a easy password, and we're gonna register. okay? If we click in Leo, we have no posts yet, all right? But if I change here to profile 1, we're able to see G, okay? And we're gonna create this relationship of Leo following G and G following Leo and displaying here the things, okay? So here in our follows, let me log in again. We're gonna create a relationship about that. So I'm gonna say that Leo follows G, okay? And here Leo is following G. So now our relationship, it seems that is working, okay? Now let's display the numbers in here in the followers following and create the button. So now that we have this relationship, we're gonna create here 2 variables, all right? One for the following. So here following will be equals. Let me first import here the follow class. All right, so we can work with this. And here in the following, we're going to say follow.objects.filter. And I want to know everyone that my particular user is following right now. So I'm going to say user equals to user, okay? And the followers, I'm going to do the other way around. I want to do the followers.objects.filter, but I want the user followed. I think this is how I'm calling this other follower. So our second field, user follower, is equals to user. Okay, so here we're getting the following and the follower. Then we're gonna send these 2 variables to our HTML. So following. Let me get here, and we're gonna have followers. With this, it will be a list, okay? And we can count using the count function. So here we're gonna do followers.count, and it will display a number for us. And here the following .count will display the numbers for us, following.count. It will do the same. So let's see if it's working. If I refresh here the page, now it's displaying that G has 1 follower, that it's Leo, we know, and following is 0 because G is not following anyone, all right? Now let's create the logic of following or unfollow, okay? So to do this, we're going to work with our views.py first. We're going to check if our current user that is logged in here already follows the person, okay? So we're going to do a try and except block so we don't crash our code. In the except block, we're gonna create a variable called isFollowing, okay? And in the except block, we're gonna store that isFollowing is false, okay? So if we have any issue, this variable will be false and nothing will happen. But we're going to check if our current user follow this particular profile that we're checking. So here, we're going to do the following. We're gonna get our followers variable that it gets all the followers for that particular profile. And we're gonna check if our current user is one of the followers. So we're gonna do user equals to user.objects.get pk equals to request.user.id, okay? Then we're gonna say if check, so this check follow will return to us a list, okay? If the list is different than 0, this means that our follow this person. If this list is 0, it's empty, this means that our current user doesn't follow this person. So here we're gonna do this thing. So if length of check follow is different than 0, we're going to do isFollowing is equals to true. Otherwise, else isFollowing is equals to false. Okay, and we're gonna send this variable to our HTML. So isFollowing, and here is following. Okay, that's pretty much what we need. Now we're gonna create the logic in our profile page. So first, here in our profile, we need to check if the user is authenticated. Okay, so here I'm gonna do in this part. I'm gonna check if user.is authenticated. Okay, we're going to check this first, otherwise we're not able to follow anyone. And I will also check if the user is not the current user, okay? So to do this, we're going to check in here. We're gonna send our user as a parameter, user. I'm gonna call user profile just to not making mistakes. And here I'm gonna send our user. And in our profile, I'm gonna check if the current user is not the user profile, because if I am trying to follow myself, this is a problem and we want to avoid this. So if user is different than the user profile, then we're able to create this logic that we are expecting. So here I'm gonna do an and if. And in here, we're going to do an if and else statement as well. Because if I am already following the person, I wanna create the button unfollow. And if I'm not following the person yet, I wanna display the button follow. And we're gonna use our isFollowing variable, because the isFollowing variable will tell us if we're following or not. Okay, so we're gonna do if isFollowing is true, we're gonna display something. Else, we're gonna display another thing, and then we need to end if, okay? If isFollowing is true, we're going to display the button unfollow. So here I'm gonna create a form action. I'm gonna leave the action empty, but soon we're gonna fix this. The method is post. And I'm going to send the, sorry, here we have to add the SRF token, CSRF token, great. And I'm going to create the button. All right, so here input type equals to submit, and the value will be unfollow. Okay, but I need to know what is the ID of the user that I want to remove. So in here, I'm going to create a hidden variable, a hidden input, type hidden, that will send this data for us in a hidden way. It will hide from the user that we're sending this variable, okay? And here I'm going to give a name equals to user follow. The value will be the user profile, okay? And that's pretty much what we need. Okay, then I'm gonna do the same for the other form, okay, for the else, but I'm gonna change the actions we're gonna work. For this first action, I'm gonna call in here URL unfollow, and for this action here, I want to follow. So here I'm gonna change here to follow, URL follow. Okay, now let's create these two functions that we just made. Okay, so let me create in here in our URLs. So let me copy this path and I'm gonna paste twice. And here I'm gonna change to unfollow. And here I'm gonna change to follow. Great. Now let's create these two functions in our views.py. So here we have our def follow request, and I'm gonna do a return. And we're gonna do a def unfollow request. And here I'm gonna say just return, so we don't crash our code. Okay, so now we need to work with the logic of these two places. If we wanna follow someone, we're gonna create this new object for the follow part. Okay, so we're gonna let the user, we're gonna create the relationship in our models.py. So here we have to first get the data that we're receiving from the form. So here user follow will be equals, let's see what is the name. We're saying user follow. So user follow will be equals to request.post user follow. Then we need to get what is we need to get all the data about the particular user that is currently surfing on the website. So here use current user will be equals to user.objects.get primary key equals to request.user.id. And then we're going to create this new object. Okay, let me just see one thing, if I'm not mistaken. Here, we need to get as well the user follow data. So we're gonna do user.objects.get, and here we're gonna say username equals to user follow. Okay, now we're able to create the relationship for our follow. So here follow, I'm gonna say f equals to follow, and here the user will be equals to current user because the current user wants to follow, and user followed will be equals to our user follow data. All right, that's pretty much what we need. Once we have this, we're gonna save this in our database, and we're gonna render again our profile page. So how are we gonna render again our profile page? I need to create here the user ID, because remember, the profile page is expecting to receive an ID when we are redirecting to this.